This video is what I like to call a lessons learned. Save yourself some a little cheat, whatever you want to say, to make things run a little bit easier. We've talked about developing apps, and when you develop apps as a developer, you want all your files to be located in the default files, not in the local files. That way, when you push out an app to a user, if they've made modifications, your stuff doesn't overwrite theirs. That's really important. It makes people very frustrated when their work gets overwritten. So, and the same goes with Splunk. When you submit an app to Splunk base, it will not let you use local directories. You're going to have everything purged from the local directory and moved into the default directory. And that is a time-consuming process. The thing is, it'd be nice if you had a development box, you make your changes, and all those changes were actually going into the default folder. But every time you make a change, and for development purposes, it's getting logged inside the local directory. And so then you have to go and basically you compare the two, you open up the default folder, you open up the local, and you start copying the changes in, or you move them in so that they disappear. And that is a time-consuming process. I did that for quite some time, and that got very frustrating. It was prone to errors. I didn't copy things correctly, things like that. Not a big fan of it. Then I came across the coolest feature, and it was by accident I found it. It's search head clusters. If you ever use a search head cluster, the concept is you'll have multiple search heads, and you have a search head master that pushes out an app to all of your search heads, much like a deployment server, but this is specifically focused on search heads. But what I found was a search head cluster naturally did that change. It would take everything that it pushed from the search head master out to those the search heads, the actual search heads, those nodes, and it automatically moved all the folders in from the local into the default and did all that work for you automated. You never even had to, you didn't even know it was doing it. And I'm sitting here going, okay, that's got to be able to be duplicated. And ultimately, I found this is the command pretty much that you run. I'm going to highlight it here. You run ops Splunk bin Splunk apply search head cluster bundle, and then you'll end up authenticating with an admin and password. And what I found was you can actually, if you do this force equals true and do an auth, if your machine is not set, it doesn't matter whether your machine is actually a search head master. What it's doing is it's actually running this command, and it creates a temporary folder location where it does all of that configuration, and then it pushes those files out. And so all you got to do is now you can actually force it to push out whether or not there are any search heads. So what I really want to point this out to you is you can have a standalone Splunk enterprise system, and you run the search head cluster bundle push command. And if you run the command just like I've written here with your username and password on there, it will it will not be able to push out to any search heads because that's not how it's configured, but it will create the temporary folders. And what you'll find is there's a directory called ops Splunk var run Splunk deploy apps. And inside that, you will find your brand new app with the default and the local files combined into one. And what I did, I'll walk you through these again so it's more clear, but I wrote a PowerShell script. If you aren't aware, in this channel I cover PowerShell. I think PowerShell is a very useful feature. I actually find it even more fun when you use it on Linux, because people think that PowerShell is solely a Windows thing, and it's not. It can totally be used on any platform. I'm going to walk you through this little script I had. I'll put this script in my in the description below, so you feel free to steal it. If you want to write it in Bash and do a very similar thing, you can. But the concept is I create a variable called source, and that's basically saying, hey, go grab everything from the Splunk Etsy apps directory, and I'm going to have my destination be the ops Splunk Etsy search head cluster apps. I actually automated this because what you'll find is this command that pushes out to the search head cluster, the thing that combines it, it's not going to look in your app directory for those apps. It's going to look in the sh cluster apps folder. But the problem is not every app is allowed to have this command run on it. There are built-in Splunk apps, and if it finds that built-in Splunk app, inside this SH cluster, it will choose not to deploy. And so, but I didn't want to have to go in and each time I was making modifications, remember which files had I been modifying, which apps had I been working in. So I created a tool that says, hey, go grab all the apps and you're going to push them all to the search head cluster. But before you do that, I have a little blacklist.csv folder. This little, and it Splunk loads that up. This is a, not Splunk, sorry, PowerShell loads that up with an import CSV, grabs this blacklist CSV, and what it does is it says copy the items from the source location to the destination recursively, so and copy all the folders down, force it so you'll overwrite, but exclude everything in the blacklist.file name. And so if I look at my blacklist.csv, you'll find the search app. You'll find a bunch of the built-in Splunk apps, and they're all listed there, and it basically says, if you're in this list, don't copy over. So I can run this command and it will naturally copy over all my apps into the search head cluster minus the ones that are on my blacklist so that the search head cluster command here will actually successfully run. And then right after it's done copying them over, it'll run this little file. It will bundle up all my stuff. And then what we'll find, and I'll go ahead and show it to you, is you'll find it makes two files, two folders, whatever you want to say, for each app in this SH cluster apps. One is the name of the app, and the other is this star.bundle. The star.bundle is that information it needs so it can push it out to the right places. We don't need that, so I just want to make things simple, and I said, hey, remove out anything that ends in .bundle. We don't need that. And then I actually had this for the system I was running. We had a development environment. We want to push this out to our staging deployment server. And so in my environment, I did an SCP command. I grabbed everything from this temporary folder that was created. It's what this made with the default and the local submitted together. And then I push it, and this is my deployment server that's in my staging environment and my staging environment root deployment app. So I build my stuff in a dev environment, a standalone Splunk instance, I test it, run it, and then when I'm ready to move it to staging, I run this PowerShell script and it copies all of my apps with the default and the local combined to the deployment app server. The deployment app server, now it gets those new apps that will then it will then push out those new apps to all my search heads, all of my apps that it should apply to. And so with one command, this publishing app.ps1 command, I can automate the entire process of creating Splunk stuff. Really, really nice. All right, so let's go look through these folders. So again, we'll pull these up and take a content. So if I go look in CD, Splunk, Etsy, apps. Oh, let me just show you what I've done here. In this directory, because I wanted to show you what happens when you run this command by itself, I am not going to run this command on a video record. Why? Because it's going to require me to put my password in. This is not the name of my username and password. In order for this command to work, I need to actually put in some password or whatever the case may be, whatever my password is for this account. I don't want to do that, but I do want you to see what it looks like when it runs. So in order to do that, I have created a deploy app.sh script, and a bash script, and I can just call /deploy app sh, and that will run this very same command. You can see that what happens. It's as if I ran this, but you're not going to be able to see my password. And you're going to see this. Oh, no target specified. Well, yeah, no crap. It's not a search head cluster. But that's okay. I'm okay with that. That's why I have this little command say force is true, and I answer yes. So it doesn't prompt me for anything, and it just pushes it out. It looks bad. You get this warning and no target specified, but don't worry, it did what it's supposed to do. But let's go over this. So if I go to op, Splunk, Etsy, apps, we've discussed this. This is a list. Oops. This is a listing of all my apps on my Splunk dev box. If I go out and then I go into SH cluster, first, let's notice that this one has an apps and a user directory. So if you want to put user settings, you push it in users. You want to push it to apps, you put it in apps. And this is on any instance, whether you're a search head cluster or not. And go to apps. And these are all of the stuff. And you'll notice the reason I have these are the things I'm pushing up to Splunk base, up to my YouTube, up to my GitLab, things like that. And so I have these right here in the search head cluster. I put them in the search head cluster apps. As they stand right now, if I go in and let's go cd L.A.M.E training, you'll notice there is a default folder and a local folder. So in order to be able to push this out to Splunk base, I'm going to have to combine the two into one. I run that command and I did it. And so now if I go into this op Splunk, just copy that. If I go clear cd and I go to that directory and I get a listing, you'll notice I have L.A.M.E indexes, L.A.M.E scripts, L.A.M.E training, log analysis made easy administration, log analysis made easy. There's my training app. And see, remember I mentioned I have all these annoying bundle files that I remove? That's why I do it. I don't want those bundle files getting copied over when I do this. And yes, I could write something that says don't copy the bundle over. I just found it easier just to erase them. Anyway, but if I go into L.A.M.E training, you'll notice there is no local directory. It has combined the contents of the local and the default. I didn't have to do a thing. There was no copy and paste. There's no chance I screw it up. This is a lifesaver. So I make my changes, just to summarize it up, I make my changes on my development box. I get it all working until I'm happy. That means now I have default settings from the original setup and all of my new changes in local. Instead of trying to manually copy them together, I run the search head cluster command to deploy with a force equals true, and I don't have it configured as a search head cluster. And that just makes it write itself, write this combined thing to the op Splunk var run Splunk deploy apps folder, and there they are. And I can go grab them out. First, I go submit that, then I take these and I submit them up to Git, I submit them up to Splunk base, and we're good to go. It has reduced a massive amount of painful, tedious work that I tend to screw up. So anyway, I hope that helps you see a real easy way of getting your local and your default files combined into one. I hope this helps you move from being a L.A.M.E analyst to a Splunk ninja. If you like this, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel. Um, if there's any recommendations you have, please put in the comments below. I'll always take feedback, and if there's something you want me to create and I can make that work, I'd love to do it for you guys. Anyway, hope you keep watching, and I hope you're enjoying the videos.